So before we begin, I'd like to thank everybody for making time to listen to my speech for my communications class. And thanks to my friends for Skyping in for us today, and thanks Mom for letting me borrow the camera. So with that, let's begin this speech. The people are the purpose of our government and the resolve of our social contract. The preamble to the Constitution states, "We the people of the United States, in order to form a more perfect union, establish justice, ensure domestic tranquility, provide for the common defense, promote the general welfare, and secure the blessings of liberty to ourselves and our posterity, do ordain and establish this Constitution for the United States of America." Due to the complexities of our modern age, reducing the harmful effects of international conflicts is critical to our national defense and the protection of our people. After listening to my speech today, the audience members should be able to have a clear understanding of why the United States is first and indispensable nation and why we should go into other countries and help in international conflicts. Now, before we get into the three real main points of my speech, let's step back and look at some background points. So my first background point is that national security is valuable. National security is inherently valuable because that's what keeps us safe. National security can be defined as basically the defense of a country, the protection of the interests of a country, and the protection of the citizens of a country. So with that, let's look at my second background point, obligation to our people. Now, the United States government has an obligation to our people. That's what it's set up to do. It is set up to protect our people. So in order to fulfill this obligation, it must fulfill national security. National security must be achieved. And my third and final background point, and this is just something to keep in mind as I'll go into it further, that is the idea, the concept of an indispensable nation. An indispensable nation is a nation in a given time period with the largest economy, the strongest military, and the most global influence. When these three criteria are met, that constitutes an indispensable nation. So with this, let's look at my three main points today. Now, my first main point is that international conflicts harm the indispensable nation. International conflicts harm the indispensable nation because, by definition, the indispensable nation has the most global influence. Now, all possible international conflicts can and eventually will harm the indispensable nation because it has the most global influence. In other words, it has the most fingers in the most pies. And therefore, all conflicts can come back and harm the indispensable nation. Let's look at an example of a country that was the indispensable nation and didn't fulfill its obligation to protect its people and didn't go in and help in an international conflict. And that's the example of England. Now, England was an indispensable nation at the beginning of World War II. However, they failed to stop the spread of they failed to stop Hitler's international conflict that he was waging on Europe. And this resulted in World War II, which resulted in 45 million civilian casualties, Russia occupying half of Europe, and it cost Britain its mantle of the indispensable nation. Let's look at the second main point of my speech today, and that is the United States is now the indispensable nation. We have, again, let's look back at what the indispensable nation is. The largest economy, the strongest military, and the most global influence. Now, we have the largest economy. According to CNN Money, we have about $17 trillion of gross domestic product annually, which is almost double the second place ranker of China. We have the largest military. According to Global Firepower, we have the largest military in the world. And not only the largest military, but the most technologically advanced military as well. Now, global influence is directly proportional to the largest economy and the largest and most powerful military. We can outspend anyone, we can outfight anyone, and we can influence anyone else. Because if you think about it, there is no other country that can tell the United States what to do. We have the largest global influence. So this brings me to my third and final point, that mitigation fulfills our obligation. Now, as I said at the beginning, the United States has a moral obligation. The United States government specifically has a moral obligation to protect its people. That is what it is set up to do. In order to do this, it must achieve national security. And as I have shown, international conflicts harm the indispensable nation, and the United States is the indispensable nation. So mitigating conflicts is obligatory. We have to mitigate conflicts. It preserves our citizens. It keeps our citizens safe. It upholds our national security. It keeps us from going the same way that England did when they saw a conflict yet did not intervene. In order for us to maintain our position as the indispensable nation, we must stop and help get involved in international conflicts in order to protect ourselves and secure the blessings of liberty to ourselves and our posterity, as it says in the preamble to our Constitution. Now, when in history have we done this? Well, we did this in Japan just after World War II. Now, Japan was in conflict with Russia even after they surrendered to the West. We went in and told Russia to stop. We put boots on the ground, pointed guns at Russia, and told them to stop their advance on Japan. And they did. This ended one of the worst military conflicts in history, World War II. It saved millions of Japanese lives. Japan became a significant trade partner and helped stop the spread of communism. And it caused Japan to be friendly towards the West, even after the horrific ramifications of World War II. So in conclusion, the United States has a moral obligation to protect its citizens. The indispensable nation, which the United States is, can and will be harmed by international conflicts. The United States, by definition, is the indispensable nation, and therefore, by extension, in order to fulfill its obligation to its people, must have an obligation to mitigate international conflicts. Winston Churchill once said, quote, "If you will not fight for right when you can easily win without bloodshed, if you will not fight when your victory is sure and not too costly, you may come to a moment when you will have to fight with all the odds against you and only a precarious chance of survival. There may even be a worse case. You may have to fight when there is no hope of victory, because it is better to perish than to live as slaves." Thank you for your time today.